Let me ask you a question before you get comfortable in your seat. How big is your thinking right now? Not how big your problem is, not how heavy your struggle feels, but how big your vision is. Because what if I told you that your biggest problem is not your lack of money, not your lack of connections, not your past mistakes or present pain? Your biggest problem is that you have been thinking too small about a God who is too big, a future that is too wide, and a purpose that refuses to fit inside your fear. Some of you have been praying small prayers, dreaming safe dreams, and settling for survival when you were created for impact. You have limited yourself to what you can see, what you can explain, and what feels comfortable. But I came to tell you today that comfort has never produced greatness. Small thinking builds small walls, and before you know it, you are living in a prison you built with your own thoughts. You are capable of more than your environment, greater than your history, and stronger than your current situation. But your mind must catch up with your destiny. You cannot step into a big future with a small mindset. You cannot expect extraordinary results while making ordinary excuses. There is something inside you that has been waiting for permission to rise, waiting for you to stop shrinking your expectations and start stretching your faith. Today is not about motivation that fades by tomorrow. Today is about a shift in how you see yourself, how you see your challenges, and how you see what is possible. If you are ready to break out of small thinking and step into the life you were meant to live, then stay with me, because what you think next may change everything. Too often, we underestimate the power of our own thinking. We look at the challenges in front of us and the people around us, and we begin to believe that our circumstances define the limits of our life. We start to tell ourselves, this is all I can handle, or this is as far as I can go, and before long, those words become self-fulfilling prophecies. Small thinking is the silent thief of potential. It creeps into our minds through comparison, doubt, and fear, convincing us that what we have is all that is possible, and that aiming higher is foolish or unrealistic. But the truth is, small thinking is not a reflection of reality. It is a reflection of limitation we place on ourselves, a limitation that does not exist in the wider world of possibilities that is waiting for us. When we think small, we begin to shrink our dreams, we begin to settle for less than we were created for, and we gradually adjust our expectations downward, convincing ourselves that survival rather than thriving is enough. Small thinking convinces us that extraordinary success is reserved for other people, that great impact belongs to those who were born with more, or that opportunities are scarce and meant for someone else. In reality, life responds not to our fears, but to the courage of our vision. When we allow our thinking to expand, doors we never imagined begin to open. Small thinking also affects how we approach challenges. When we think small, obstacles become mountains, and failure feels like the end of the road. Every setback confirms our doubts, and we hesitate to take risks, to push forward, or to step into the unknown. But when we think bigger than our problems, we realize that obstacles are temporary and that solutions exist beyond what we can immediately see. Thinking big does not remove challenges, but it gives us the framework to overcome them. It trains our minds to see opportunity in difficulty and to see growth in struggle. Another effect of small thinking is the way it limits generosity and influence. When we believe our resources are insufficient, we hold back from sharing our talents, our time, and our vision with others. We measure our impact by what we feel we can afford, rather than by the ripple effect of courage and bold action. Thinking small isolates us and keeps our potential contained, but thinking expansively creates connections, empowers others, and multiplies influence far beyond what we imagine for ourselves. The shift from small thinking to big thinking is not easy. It requires intentionality, discipline, and a willingness to challenge the narratives we have been living by. It requires us to stop looking at our current circumstances as the final word and to start imagining what is truly possible if we refuse to limit ourselves. It requires stepping out of comfort zones, challenging fears, and envisioning a future that stretches us. But the reward is immeasurable. When we break free from small thinking, we open the door to new ideas, new opportunities, and new levels of success that were previously invisible to us. Our mindset becomes a compass guiding us toward possibilities rather than trapping us in limitations. So today, the question is not whether you can handle the journey ahead, but whether your thinking is large enough to accommodate the life that is waiting for you. Stop shrinking your vision, stop settling for what seems safe, and start believing in the power of your own potential. The life you want, the impact you are capable of making, and the dreams that keep whispering to your heart are all waiting for you to expand your thinking. Small thinking may have held you back until now, but it does not have to define your future. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that keeps people trapped in small thinking. It shows up in subtle ways, disguised as practicality, realism, or even humility. We tell ourselves that we are being responsible, that we are simply acknowledging the risks, when in reality, fear is dictating our choices and shrinking our potential. Fear convinces us that we are not ready, that the timing is wrong, or that we do not have enough experience or resources to take the next step. It whispers lies that make us doubt our own abilities, undermining our confidence and keeping us confined to what feels safe and familiar. When fear disguises itself as realism, we begin to rationalize staying small. We say things like, I just need to focus on what I can control, or I don't want to overreach and fail. But what we are really doing is avoiding the discomfort of growth, the uncertainty of expansion, and the risk that comes with pursuing something greater than ourselves. The problem is, fear never leads to progress. It keeps us in a cycle of playing it safe, settling for mediocrity, and measuring success by how little we stumble rather than how far we can rise. Fear makes us believe that failure is the enemy, when in fact, failure is often the teacher. It convinces us that we are not enough, that we are not capable, and that the world is too big or too harsh for our dreams. But fear is nothing more than a reaction to thinking too small. It thrives in the space where we limit our vision, because when we shrink what is possible, fear finds room to grow. The key to overcoming fear is to recognize it for what it really is, a signal that we are on the edge of growth, a sign that we are about to step beyond what is familiar. Fear is not a wall, it is a doorway. It is a natural response to expansion, a companion to courage, and a necessary indicator that we are moving towards something bigger than ourselves. To stop letting fear disguise itself as realism, we must first confront it honestly. We must ask ourselves what we are really afraid of. Are we afraid of failing in front of others? Are we afraid of losing comfort, stability, or approval? Are we afraid of the unknown? Once we name the fear, we can begin to reframe it. Fear loses its power when it is acknowledged, analyzed, and met with deliberate action. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Every person who has achieved greatness has had to wrestle with fear. They have felt the doubt, the hesitation, and the weight of uncertainty, but they chose to move anyway, to trust their vision, and to refuse to allow fear to dictate the size of their dreams. When fear is faced head on, it transforms from a barrier into a teacher. It sharpens our focus, strengthens our resolve, and stretches our resilience. Each time we confront fear and take action despite it, we expand the boundaries of what we believe is possible. Overcoming fear also requires a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing fear as a signal to retreat, we must see it as evidence that we are stepping into growth. Instead of letting fear limit our choices, we let it guide us toward the areas where our courage can make the greatest impact. Fear is not the enemy of progress. Small thinking is. Fear becomes destructive only when it is allowed to control our decisions and keep us confined to a life that is smaller than what we were created for. The moment we recognize that fear is a disguised invitation to think bigger, we can begin to move boldly. We can stop letting fear dictate the size of our vision, the scale of our dreams, and the reach of our potential. When fear disguises itself as realism, it is time to remember that comfort never produces greatness, hesitation never builds legacy, and caution alone never changes a life. Courage is not an optional trait. It is the bridge between small thinking and extraordinary living. To live beyond fear is to live beyond limits, to see opportunity where others see obstacles, and to claim the life that is waiting for you. Fear may knock at your door, but it does not have to move in. Too many people confuse their current environment with the limits of their potential. They look around at the people, the resources, and the circumstances that surround them and assume that this is the ceiling of their life. They believe that if others have not achieved more, if their surroundings are modest, or if opportunities seem scarce, then their dreams must be equally small. But your environment is not your ceiling. The truth is that your potential is not dictated by where you are, who you are with, or the conditions you find yourself in. Your environment may influence you, it may challenge you, and it may even slow you down temporarily, but it cannot define the boundaries of what you can achieve unless you allow it to. Many people use their environment as an excuse for mediocrity. They say, I can't do this because I don't have the connections, or I can't pursue my dream because resources are limited here, or I would have done more if I had been born somewhere else. But these are lies we tell ourselves to justify staying small. Your environment only has as much power over you as you give it. History is full of examples of people who rose above their circumstances, who saw opportunity where others saw limitation, and who refused to let their surroundings dictate the size of their dreams. What separates those who succeed from those who stagnate is not privilege, luck, or a perfect setting. It is mindset. When you understand that your environment is a platform, not a prison, you begin to see possibilities that were invisible before. Your current surroundings may not be ideal, but they can be the training ground for resilience, creativity, and resourcefulness. They can teach you lessons about patience, determination, and strategy that no perfect environment could provide. The danger comes when you let your environment define your expectations. If you believe that success can only come from certain places, certain people, or certain circumstances, you will never stretch beyond the limits that others have unconsciously set for you. Your vision becomes tethered to the familiar, and you start to accept mediocrity as inevitable. But thinking bigger than your environment requires courage, imagination, and determination. It requires looking past what is visible and believing in what is possible. It means refusing to allow the current state of things to dictate your future and choosing to create opportunities even when they are not handed to you. One of the most powerful tools you have is the ability to take control of your mind. Your thoughts can either amplify the limitations of your environment or transcend them. If you constantly tell yourself that your surroundings define you, then they will. But if you consistently remind yourself that your potential is limitless, then your environment becomes a backdrop, not a barrier. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is ideal. It means acknowledging the challenges, but refusing to be defined by them. It means using your environment as a springboard instead of a cage. People who rise above their circumstances learn to maximize what they have, to seek mentors beyond their immediate surroundings, to educate themselves, and to stretch their influence beyond borders. They do not wait for the perfect moment, the perfect place, or the perfect resources. They act with what is available, and in doing so, they expand what is possible. Today, the message is clear. Your environment is not your ceiling. It may shape you, challenge you, and test your determination, but it cannot limit your potential unless you let it. Stop letting where you are dictate how far you can go. Stop measuring your dreams by the scope of your surroundings. Start believing that your vision can outgrow your environment, that your potential can surpass the limits of your present, and that you have the power to create a life far greater than the world around you suggests. The only real ceiling is the one you accept in your mind. Break free from it and watch your life expand beyond what you ever imagined. Faith is not a passive feeling or a fleeting hope that everything will somehow work out. Faith is an active, living force that grows when it is tested, stretched, and challenged. Comfort may feel safe, predictable, and convenient, but comfort is the enemy of growth. When life is too easy, when nothing pushes against us, we rarely discover the depth of our own strength or the power of our own convictions. Faith grows most when we are forced to step into the unknown, when circumstances seem overwhelming, and when the familiar support systems fail to provide the answers we seek. It is in these moments when we are uncomfortable, when we are challenged, and when we feel inadequate, that faith begins to expand. Too often, people retreat from discomfort, believing that peace, stability, or security is the ultimate goal. We settle into routines that require little courage and demand little trust in ourselves or in the possibilities before us. But the truth is that faith is not built in ease. It is built in endurance, perseverance, and risk. When we are faced with challenges that seem bigger than our resources, when we are asked to take steps that feel unsafe, when we encounter obstacles that appear insurmountable, these are precisely the opportunities where faith grows. It grows because we are forced to trust beyond what we can see, to rely on strength beyond our own, and to step boldly where logic and comfort would advise caution. Faith is a muscle that strengthens through use, through the repeated act of choosing belief over doubt, hope over fear, and action over inertia. Every time we take a step forward, in spite of uncertainty, faith deepens. Every time we trust in the process, despite the discomfort, we are stretching our capacity to believe in the impossible. Comfort, on the other hand, seduces us into thinking that safety is equivalent to wisdom, that eases the path to success, and that avoiding challenges will preserve our energy or resources. But this is an illusion. Avoiding discomfort may protect us temporarily, but it prevents growth permanently. True expansion, spiritual, emotional, and even practical, requires stepping into spaces where we are tested, where we are stretched, and where we must rely on faith to navigate the unknown. Faith grows when we allow ourselves to move beyond the boundaries of what feels secure. It grows when we embrace challenges as opportunities rather than threats. It grows when we reject the temptation to stay small and instead pursue the higher calling that requires risk, persistence, and trust. In fact, some of the most transformative experiences in life come from moments of discomfort. They teach resilience, courage, and determination. They force us to rely on something greater than our own understanding and to act in ways that expand our vision of what is possible. Comfort, while pleasant, does not stretch us. It does not cultivate the resilience necessary for enduring challenges. It does not inspire the innovation and creativity that arise when we are pressed beyond the ordinary. Faith, however, thrives in those exact moments. It thrives when we are challenged to believe without immediate evidence, to act without full assurance, and to move forward even when the outcome is uncertain. To cultivate faith that moves mountains, we must intentionally step out of comfort zones. We must seek challenges that stretch us, confront obstacles that test us, and take risks that require trust beyond what is visible. Every act of courage, every step of trust, every choice to believe in the unseen strengthens faith and prepares us for greater challenges ahead. Growth, impact, and extraordinary achievement are never born in comfort. They are born in the tension between the familiar and the unknown, between limitation and possibility, and between fear and trust. The greater the discomfort, the greater the potential for faith to expand. The more we lean into challenges, the stronger our faith becomes, and the further we move toward the life we were created to live. Faith grows when comfort is challenged, and it is through this growth that we discover the extraordinary power within us to rise, overcome, and achieve beyond what we once thought possible. Expansion begins with a decision, a moment when you refuse to accept the limits that have been imposed on your life, whether by circumstances, by others, or by your own mind. Too often, we wait for conditions to be perfect, for resources to align, or for opportunities to present themselves before we take action. But growth does not wait for convenience, and potential does not respond to hesitation. Expansion starts when you decide that enough is enough. When you recognize that thinking small has kept you confined and that the life you desire requires a deliberate choice to move beyond fear, doubt, and limitation. Every great achievement begins with a decision to act, to believe, and to step into the unknown despite uncertainty. It is not a passive hope or idle wish. It is a conscious commitment to refuse stagnation, to refuse mediocrity, and to refuse to let circumstances dictate the size of your vision. Decisions are powerful because they shift you from being a passenger in your own life to being the driver of your destiny. Before a decision is made, you may feel trapped by what is familiar or constrained by what seems possible. But the moment you decide to expand, your mind starts looking for ways to make it happen. Opportunities that were invisible before suddenly appear. Resources you thought you lacked reveal themselves, and solutions to problems emerge as you take the first steps forward. The act of deciding creates momentum, and momentum transforms potential into reality. Expansion also requires persistence. A single decision is not enough. It must be followed by consistent action, discipline, and resilience. The path toward growth is rarely smooth or predictable. You will encounter resistance, setbacks, and moments when doubt tries to convince you to retreat. But each time you choose to continue to move forward despite discomfort, you reinforce your commitment and expand the limits of what you believe is possible. Growth is rarely instantaneous. It is the result of repeated choices, consistent effort, and unwavering determination. Another essential aspect of expansion is the willingness to embrace discomfort and uncertainty. Growth is uncomfortable because it pushes you beyond familiar patterns and challenges the limits of your current understanding. It demands that you stretch your skills, develop new perspectives, and cultivate resilience in the face of obstacles. People often resist expansion because it threatens their sense of security, but the discomfort is necessary. It signals that you are moving towards something greater, and it is in that tension between challenge and action that true growth occurs. Decisions that lead to expansion also require a mindset that sees possibility rather than limitation. When you decide to think bigger, to act boldly, and to pursue a life beyond the ordinary, you begin to rewire your mind. You start to perceive opportunities where others see barriers, to recognize potential where others see risk, and to believe in solutions where others see problems. Your decision becomes a lens through which you interpret the world, guiding your actions and shaping your results. Expansion begins with a decision, but it is sustained through courage, faith, and consistent effort. It is a declaration that you will no longer allow circumstances, fear, or small thinking to define the trajectory of your life. Every choice to act boldly, every commitment to persist through difficulty, and every willingness to step into the unknown compounds over time, creating momentum that carries you toward the extraordinary life you were meant to live. Today, the opportunity is before you. You can choose to remain within the familiar, constrained by what you have known and what feels safe, or you can make the decision to expand. You can choose to think bigger, to act boldly, and to embrace the challenges that will stretch you. Expansion begins with a decision, and that decision can change everything. It is the spark that ignites progress, the turning point that transforms potential into achievement, and the first step toward a life that exceeds every limitation you once believed in. As we come to the close of this message, I want you to understand one undeniable truth. Your life is not limited by your circumstances, your past, or even the obstacles in front of you. The only thing that has been holding you back is the size of your thinking. Thinking small, letting fear dictate your decisions, believing that your environment sets your limits, staying comfortable, and delaying the decision to expand have all worked together to keep you confined. But today, everything changes. Today is a moment of awakening, a moment to refuse the boundaries that have been imposed on you, and a moment to step into the fullness of your potential. You are capable of far more than you realize. You have the power to rise above doubt, to challenge fear, and to pursue a vision that stretches beyond what you have ever imagined. The life you desire, the impact you are meant to make, and the legacy you are destined to leave all depend on one simple choice: the choice to think bigger, to act boldly, and to refuse to settle. You must decide that small thinking will no longer define your story, that fear will no longer hold sway over your decisions, and that your environment will no longer determine the height of your dreams. Comfort may call you to remain in what is familiar, but greatness demands courage, persistence, and a willingness to face the unknown. Expansion begins with that decision, and it is sustained through consistent action, faith, and the refusal to let temporary setbacks dictate your journey. Remember, obstacles do not define you, limitations are not permanent, and your circumstances are never your ceiling. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen your resolve. Every doubt is an invitation to trust in your potential. And every step outside your comfort zone is a step toward extraordinary growth. Today, make the decision to live without limits. Refuse to think small. Refuse to let fear guide you. Refuse to let your surroundings confine you, and refuse to settle for anything less than what you were created to achieve. Your potential is too vast, your purpose too significant, and your life too important to be constrained by small thinking. The moment you embrace this truth, the moment you act on it, everything changes. You will begin to see doors open, opportunities arise, and possibilities multiply in ways you never thought possible. Your destiny is not waiting for permission. It is waiting for your courage, your faith, and your decision to think bigger. Step into that life today. Step into your purpose, your vision, and your potential. Do not shrink, do not settle, and do not allow small thinking to define you. The life you desire, the impact you are capable of making, and the greatness that is already within you are waiting for you to claim them. Your biggest problem has been thinking too small, and the solution is simple: think bigger, act boldly, and refuse to be limited. The choice is yours, and the time to decide is now.